Okay, everybody, this is my spoiler review of the It Welcome to Derry finale. After my review, make sure to check out my brand new interview with the Patty Cakes. We talk all about the finale and much more. It's a really, really fun time, and check out all my interviews I've done with the cast of It. It'll be linked below in the comments. So we see right away at the top of this episode, catastrophe is happening in Derry. The smoke cloud is taking over Derry. It's really cool. We saw one bystander do the Pennywise smile. But at the school, the kids are brought into the auditorium by Pennywise, and you see that Patty, the leader of the Patty Cakes, is pondering who will have the ugliest children. Just a cold person. But what's revealed to them is the principal comes out and introduces Pennywise. His toupee falls off, which I loved. When Pennywise appears, he sticks his fingers into his eyes and actually takes his head off and holds it like a bowling ball. I love we get to see Pennywise do his little jig, and he even breaks out into his little song. I love the end of the song where he says, "How I wish I could cry every time we say goodbye," and holds that note as he opens the deadlights and takes over the children. I love when the children are trying to leave the auditorium, they're locked in. It was giving a lot of Carrie vibes, another great Stephen King story. And it's a great opener to play before the show intro. So it leads into Ronnie, Lily, and Marge finding all of these missing children flyers, which looked really cool and has a great connection to the original first movie, which we'll get to. But the big thing is they find one with Will's face on it, so that sets the story in motion here, where they have to find Will. Marge sees the milkman couldn't hack it, so she takes over the milk truck. And we see that Pennywise is playing the tuba on this circus wagon, which is being followed by all of the children he has taken over. Leroy gets called by Pennywise. Pennywise asks, "What scares the man without fear?" So I like they went more into that. I wish the show even went more into him having this lack of fear in his brain. Leroy asks, "Is it you?" And he says, "No, it's us. The big fear is him losing Will." Crazy line here where Pennywise says, "Have to keep him nice and fresh. The dark meat tastes twice as sweet." So this is pure horror here and the absolute biggest fear someone like Leroy the Man Without Fear could feel. Meanwhile, Halloran is somehow having it worse and is being haunted by these ghosts nonstop. He is ready to take himself out, but he's stopped by Leroy because Leroy pleads for his help and that Will is missing. But he offers Halloran that he will even pull the trigger for him if he helps him out. But you'll see as the episode goes on, Halloran actually goes through this experience a changed man in a better way. And that big part is with what Rose is going to give him, which we'll get to, which helps him with these ghosts. Now, I love when they cut to the military base and one of the soldiers informs Shaw that Leroy forced his way through the guard gate. I'm sure they filmed that scene and it probably just didn't come out right. It's so strange that the last episode ended with Shaw saying, "Do not let that man leave this base." Somehow he forced his way through the gate. We don't see the scene. He got away. Just a little odd. Now it's Rose who comes up with the idea to use Halloran to find this dagger and use it as the last pillar to cage Pennywise back into his place, but they have to put it into the deadwood area where this tree is before Pennywise crosses that area or it won't all connect. Rose gives Halloran the Mandarin tea. I really want to see this turtle come to life in the show. They keep hinting at him with the children of Mandarin, the Mandarin mascot. I hope they're saving him for a future season at least, and that we'll eventually see him as an actual entity. But it's cool, this effect with the tea on Halloran, and that it would help him ease the voices. But it would connect him to where these evil things came from, but she says to him there is some good there too. So it's not all bad. We also learn from Rose that the further you take this dagger from its home, which we know is under the Neibolt house, the further it drives you insane. So this is going to set up what happens with Lily. But before we even get to that, we see that Marge is driving this milk truck, hits into a pothole. And it does this cool, wild, and weird transition effect going back to Halloran where he's opening his mouth and shouting, "They're going after Will," talking about the kids. We see Lily is in her Frodo mode with the dagger. She is getting attached to it and losing her mind with it. But you see she's running away because she doesn't want them to get hurt with how she's been with this dagger, trying to protect them, which is the heroic thing to do. And Ronnie does an even more heroic thing by stopping her and saying, "You are a lifeboat," because remember that goes back to Lily's pep talk about being the lifeboat in life. So it's a nice payoff there. And it's a cool moment where the dagger lights up, and that's where they see Pennywise in his little parade. Now they run on the ice towards Pennywise, and I love when he comes out of the wagon and Ronnie takes out the dagger, and then eventually he starts running around them. That was so great. And them in that circle, really effective and pretty funny too at Pennywise. You love to see Pennywise scary, but also funny too. Now we get this big reveal. A lot of people predicted that when Pennywise says to Marge, I always wondered how you would taste Margaret Tozier. And she goes, Tozier? And he's like, well, you're not Tozier yet. So this is the big reveal that she is Richie's mom. And I love we get to see the Richie Tozier exact flyer from It Chapter 1 that was scaring him and one of his biggest fears of going missing. This also explains why he would be afraid of clowns so deeply, because his mother confronted Pennywise and was attacked by him. Pennywise says to Marge, the seed of your stinking loins and filthy friends brings me my death. Then he says, or is it birth? And then says, beep, beep, Marge, which was a great callback to the books, and of course them referencing it in the movies. And then he's stopped and frozen. Now this is huge though. All this dialogue is big. This is where I got really excited and how they're tying this into the original movies. And it's going to be clarified by Marge in a scene with Lily later on, which I'll break down. But it changes how we look at them going in the past in each season of this show, which I'll get more in detail as we go on. Now, as Pennywise is frozen, the kids are released from their trance, and this is when the adults show up. Now it's Tanyel and Leroy who are going to put the dagger at the deadwood tree, but Tanyel and Leroy get shot, and Tanyel doesn't make it, unfortunately. Leroy gives the dagger to Will. Will says, I'm scared, I'm not you. But this is where Leroy has a great line saying, you don't have to be me, you just be you. And this is coming full circle for Leroy to accept Will as he is and not being such a harsh parent and wanting him to change to all of his standards and ways. Now Shaw looks through the binoculars, sees the frozen Pennywise, and Shaw comes face to face with Pennywise and it in general. Shaw says, we're going to fix whatever Halloran has done to you. So he knows Halloran's in his head. And that's cool to us to see that Halloran is able to control the identity for a time. He puts him into a Bob Gray memory, but Pennywise cleverly catches on because he sees the ringmaster's hand actually reveals itself to be black, and then it reveals to be Halloran. So this was all really cool and effective to see Halloran use his powers against it. So because Pennywise figures out what's happening, he's able to unfreeze. This is where he stops, takes a beat, and realizes he recognizes Shaw, and he says, I know you. I never forget a smell. And he changes to the form of it that Shaw saw as a kid and takes a bite out of him. Thank God Shaw got it. He was just a character so frustrating, especially the information he knew and making dumb decisions. Now, what's really effective in the tension that happens here is the dagger starts to fight against Will. So it's having the kids push through with him to get to the tree. It's not just some easy task. And this is all happening while Pennywise is closing in, and I love that he's hopping. And at the same time, Leroy Rose and Halloran are fighting against the military. Leroy shoots Pennywise in the head multiple times, giving the kids time. I love the Jack-in-the-Box clown pops up as Pennywise's head, and Pennywise even attempts to do the deadlights on Leroy. But it doesn't work, and this great moment happens where Halloran sees the war chief again, and he's with little Rich. And then Rich runs to help the kids and gives Pennywise a finger. So cool. Then Pennywise turns into this bird clown, which was wild. Is about to get to the kids, but the kids just in time get the dagger into the ground and use it as a pillar at the deadwood, and Pennywise starts to evaporate through all his forms. So it's a beautiful moment with Rich helping them, and Marge having the line at the end, was that just me or did we feel something? And Ronnie's like, another pair of hands, and that's when Lily's like, Rich, and they connect the dots. They all felt him there. So cool. And heartwarming like you get in a lot of Stephen King stories. But poor Rose gets the short end of the stick here with Tanyel. My God, like out of all the adults, she really got it bad here. Now we go to Rich's funeral. Marge has a great speech here and talks about maybe just having friends, that they don't have to be necessarily good or bad friends, just the comfort of having a friend. And that was like what Rich was to her. And Matilda Lawler, who I interviewed as Marge, just spectacular scene here for her acting wise. She's going to be a big star. I could see it. And it's a nice touch. Marge puts the drumsticks on Rich's casket. And Halloran seeing Rich there was so great. Him just having his arms around his friends. And they're even able to get a nice moment with Halloran telling Rich's parents that he is with them. They ask, who are you, sir? And he says, I'm still working on that. I just want to see more Halloran in the show. And he then eventually goes to see Leroy, and he talks about he's going to work at a hotel, which we know is the Overlook, We know he's in The Shining as an older man. I would love to see that time of him starting out at the Overlook. I think that could be a really, really cool story to explore, especially with this actor Chris Chalk, who's great. Now, another nice moment is Marge seeing Rich's plane in the tree that he threw, and then Lily finally making some peace with her father and visiting his grave. Now, the big moment here is when Marge talks to Lily about Pennywise talking to her and revealing that her son and his friends are going to kill him in the future. But he says to it, the past, present, and future are all the same. What if he does see time differently? What if he can go backwards? What if he goes back and tries to kill someone from the time before we were born? Not only do we already know that we were going to go back in time for each season in these events, the 27-year gaps, but that there's a different angle to this, that Pennywise is actually going backwards from the movies back in time, and he's on a mission to stop these kids that we saw in the movies from killing him as adults, and that he would stop the bloodline from it happening. And that's why he's targeting the parents, and that can go on in the future seasons. So I thought that was really clever, a really cool way to tie it all in, that we're not just seeing a full prequel, that it can actually be looked at sort of like a sequel because we're following the villain going back in time. I really like this. It gives so much more weight to the story now and where we're going to go with Welcome to Derry. And it gives weight to it being called It Welcome to Derry Chapter 1. It's revealed on the title card at the end because it makes sense now to call it that, because even though we're going back in time, Pennywise, his story is kind of going in future in his timeline, if that makes any sense. Now we'll see Rose offer Charlotte and Leroy a spot here to help and to protect this cage and someone doing stupid things like Shaw again. They first hesitate, but then they eventually accept to help and be on a farm, which is setting up where we see Leroy in the movies. And then we get this sweet moment where Ronnie and Will finally have a big smooch and that they connect. And they're talking about their fears of like forgetting when you leave Derry, but we see that Ronnie's actually the one who leaves Derry, and Will's trying to write to her, talking about hopefully they won't forget, especially the sweet stuff they had together. So it's a nice end for them too. And we know that Will has a tragic ending where he dies in a house fire as an adult. We'll see if it goes that route. They might retcon some stuff. We'll have to see where that would even fit, because if you were going to do a future timeline with any of these characters like Lily, Ronnie, or Will, it would have to be somewhere in between one of the movies or before the first movie. I don't know how they would actually do it without following the rule of Pennywise every 27 years. But it's all the more tragic if you just accept that in your head, that we know Will's story is him dying as an adult in a fire. Now, let's go to like the post-credits scene here, where it's awesome because we see Ingrid, current day that we've been following, is in a straitjacket at Juniper Hill. But I will say, before I get the excitement going with this, it was very strange that Ingrid and Hank Grogan never had another scene after he was totally fooled by her the whole season. Nothing of him even being told about or acknowledging it. Very strange and a total miss, I think, on wrapping up all the threads of the season. But we see they're playing the record there. It's working on her. And then we jump to 26 years later, and this is October 1988, the same month Georgie dies in It 1. What's wild here is this is again Ingrid being played by Joan Gregson, who played her in It Chapter 2 when she met with adult Beverly. Joan Gregson unfortunately passed away in June 2025, but it's so great they got to film with her before she did pass, so it's truly amazing that we got to see her again play this role. And in this big reveal, we see that Alfreda Marsh is hanging, which has always been alluded to when Beverly talks about her mom, that she committed suicide. And it's amazing we get to see Sophia Lillis again as Beverly Marsh, and it still works with her in costume. She still looks like Beverly from the movies. So cool. I got chills. I was so excited seeing her again. I couldn't believe it. Like, I just didn't think that was a possible option or thing. And this is huge because this is where the identity really came back before he even went to Georgie. It was at the site of Beverly's mom having committed suicide at Juniper Hill. And we see Ingrid says, "Oh dear, don't be sad. You know what they say about Derry. No one who dies here ever really dies." So really amazing. It goes back to that quote she says during Chapter 2. We saw it said in the show before. So what a way to end the season on like a Marvel-esque, amazing Marvel-esque type post-credit scene. I mean, for me, just blown away seeing Sophia Lillis as Beverly Marsh again, and it totally working visually, really, really cool, and connecting to the first movie so well. Bravo for that too. And bravo, like I said, setting up future seasons to be even more interesting because we know Pennywise's point of view is him going back in time to prevent his death in chapter 2. Really cool. So overall, this was my favorite episode of the season. I'm going to give this one a 9.2 because it was really fun. The horror was really great. It had a lot of good payoffs with stories and character beats, like Taylour with Will and learning to trust him and give him a little freedom. Everything with Rich and him being still involved in a spiritual way here. Everything wrapping up with Halloran really interesting and setting up him to be in the Overlook Hotel. Really cool. And everything with Pennywise wrapping well too in his little second attack mode here, but being stopped in a fun, exciting way with a lot of great tension and setting up things for the future seasons in really interesting ways. So Bill Skarsgård, props to you too, just giving his all and even topping his performances in the movies as Pennywise in the show. So I'm excited to see him again in the future seasons. And it ended on a really high note for me, so I'm happy about that. So overall, I'm giving it a 9.2. Let me know your thoughts on the finale below. Let me know your thoughts on the season as a whole below. I think the season was solid. It wasn't amazing, but it's now set up space for me to go that season 2 can be amazing. It's setting up a higher ceiling now with the ideas they have brewing. So I'm excited to see that. And hopefully, who knows, we'll see one of these actors again, maybe playing a different character again, or just their character appearing in a different timeline and maybe even in a flashback. You never know. But make sure to check out my interview with the Patty Cakes. It's a brand new one. We talk about the finale. It's a really fun time having them all together with me. It was really cool. And please check out all my other interviews. I interviewed Lily, Marge, and Maddie. So don't miss those. Please subscribe so you don't miss one of my reviews of Fallout. I'm also doing Stranger Things, and I'm doing Pluribus at the moment, and then The Pit as well. So make sure to stay around with me for this channel. I appreciate all you guys. I appreciate watching the show with you, and I'll see you next time.